Before we go into any more of Steiner's actual books, I want to show you something else, which is a very good book because it is an introduction to the life and work of Rudolf Steiner by Gary Lachman, Lachman. And in this book, as you go through it, it's good print, it's easy to read, but it's very informative because it takes you through his whole life and all the types of changes he went through. Now, I'm going to have to read you a little from the back of this. Now, it says here that Gary Lachman, induced into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame as the founder and member of the pioneering rock band Blondie. Gary Lachman is one of today's most widely read writers on esoteric and occult subject matter. His books have been published to acclaim in both England and in America. He lives in London. Now, what this does is gives you much information about Steiner. For example, he says, telling Steiner's story and placing him in the historical context, Lachman presents a philosopher's key idea in a readable, accessible manner. He traces Steiner's beginnings as a young intellectual in the ferment of the cul-de-sac culture to his rise as of his own metaphysical teaching, anthroposophy. Finally, his book illustrates how Steiner's methods are put into practice today and relates the cosmological insights to the world, the work of other thinkers. Steiner is a full-blooded portrait of one of the most original philosophical and spiritual luminaries in the last 2 centuries, and gives those interested in the history of his ideas an opportunity to discover one of the most underappreciated figures of the 20th century. And Colin Wilson, in reviewing this book, says, although deeply sympathetic with Steiner, Gary Lachman being to this immensely readable study the balance and detachment of one who is on a familiar terms with the whole range of esotericism. Reading this account of Steiner's life and ideas, you will feel you are in safe hands. Now again, we come to that same idea. By the way, this has a very good index, which is very helpful. We come to that same idea of the difficulty in understanding Rudolf Steiner, and yet how influential his ideas have become all over the world. And what Gary Lachman does is interesting because he's so sympathetic to Steiner, but he tries to do a balanced reading and not taking his point of view totally, which is good because in many books you'll find those who are sympathetic emphasize one side of the coin, so to speak. But Gary Lachman does not. So this book, if anyone wants to learn something about Rudolf Steiner without actually reading any of his actual books, will find this one extremely helpful. That is why I have chosen this before we actually get into any of the other actual books that Steiner wrote. Now, the next one I will deal with is quite interesting. And I won't go into it now because it will take time, but this is quite interesting. So this book is about the esoteric significance of the Bhagavad Gita and its relation to the epistles of Paul. These are actually translations of the Gita in the back as it is, and then about Christianity and Paul in particular. This is an incredibly excellent and fascinating book.